Thunder Nation? Sooner Nation. Maybe. I'd like to think there's overlap. OU Insider subscribers, Coach Bryan Clinton enthusiasts, people who are, as we record this at 12:55 on a Wednesday, excited for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Excited because football season is like 2.5 months away, give or take. This is the podcast for you. This is another episode of The Oklahoma Drill, a podcast fueled by OU Insider. I am Jesse Crittenden, and I am joined by Bryan Clinton. And Bryan, I see your hat. I like the hat.
I see your shirt.
I have the shirt.
I like
how are
the
you?
shirt.
How are you feeling about the NBA Finals? Real quick, tell me.
We've dominated 95% of the series so far, and the 5% that we didn't, actually probably 90%. 90% is probably a better way of putting that. And the 5% cost us, but it almost feels eerily like the way the series started with Denver. So I like how they rallied, and you just got to keep Halliburton from killing you. If they do that, they'll be all right.
I went to both games 1 and 2 of the finals. OU softball. OU softball was nice enough to lose to Texas Tech, clearing a path for me and Ryan Chapman to go to game 1 of the finals. And it was electric. It was awesome. Game 1 was a bummer.
What was that moment like? I hate to ask you to dive back into that, but like how cool, because that's not a quiet arena. That arena is built to be loud, and that had to have been weird.
I would say it was a little surreal. Game 2 was probably the loudest I've ever heard it, and I've been to probably 40 some odd regular season games over the last 2 years, and then every playoff game since last season. I would say game 2 is the loudest I've ever heard it. My only complaint is that it has not really felt like the finals. And I think part of that is just the lack of pageantry. Even showing up, and the only decals on the court are YouTube TV ones.
I was very disappointed in that.
The clip art trophies they tried to add in game 2 was like both hilarious and almost insulting. And I had people texting me at the game, like, because I couldn't see, I'm not seeing it, about the trophies, and I saw it afterwards. I was like, oh my God. It was awful. But game 2 was, you could feel there wasn't not like anxiousness or nervousness, because I think people were still confident that the Thunder are going to win both that game and the series. But you could definitely feel a sense of urgency that wasn't there in game 1.
Yeah.
But the finals being in Oklahoma City is pretty rad.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Pretty rad. Let's win game 3 tonight. Okay, we are going to do, I texted you yesterday about what are a couple of fun-ish off-season things we could do, because SEC...
And I had terrible ideas. They were just terrible.
You suggested a NCAA or a college football 26 thing, which I liked. Here's the problem. I have not kept up with the game almost at all.
Yeah.
I have friends that are super excited about it, and I don't know anything about it.
It's just, it'll be fun. The one thing that I'm bummed about is it sounds like Brent Venables is not going to be in the game, at least right now, which is odd, but
I say we revisit. You know what? He's worried about competitive depth on his roster. He's worried about 212, team 131. What team is this?
I can just see how that conversation went. Like, he gets it from his secretary. They want my no. I've got things to do.
I actually, even though the conversation probably went that way, I do remember at SEC Media Days last year, I remember we got to do the core OU beat was able to do a scrum with him before he took the podium like for the official press conference. And we walked, and where we did it was like in the corner of their like getting ready room for like all players that were there. Jackson Arnold, Stutzman, Bowman, and their staff and everybody that was there was like just the OU room. And College Football 25 had just come out, right? And College Football 25 was on the TV. Like they had been playing it, and I remember Brent saying so. I asked him, I was like, I asked him something like, "Are you getting on the sticks? Are you playing?" And he was like, "I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even begin to understand how to play that game." So he is aware that it exists.
Okay,
he's aware that it exists. But part of it is because Brian, I think I have realized, even with the Thunder, which is like my only opportunity to really be a fan, I think we get so caught up in how serious everything feels and how, especially for OU football, we don't need to reiterate what the stakes are going into this fall. Right. The disaster scenario includes another losing season, Brent Venables losing his job, and the program starting over. Like all on the table, right? Yeah. This is also supposed to be kind of fun, too. Mm-hmm. You know? So, I think we'll talk about a couple other things a little bit later, but for now, I thought it'd be fun. Let's talk about, I asked you to pick 5 games on the upcoming schedule this fall. I picked 5 games, and the goal is to pick the 5 games that will tell the story of the University of Oklahoma football program in 2025. This is kind of an offshoot of my my off-season schedule review series where I rank each game like for entertainment value, difficulty, significance, like all this different stuff. I actually published the first one a couple of days ago. It was Kent State. Sorry, Kent State. You went 0-12, so you ranked 12 last year. So you ranked 12th in the series. But
that's my most important game.
you're super excited to see OU coming off a bye week playing Kent State.
No, I'm good, man.
And we'll be at all these games, and they'll all feel awesome and all that stuff. But we're going to pick the 5 games. I asked you to pick 5. I'm picking 5. The games that will determine OU's football season based on whatever factors you want to include. I asked you to pick 5. I want to see where we overlap. That's another thing. Give me your number 5. What's your number 5 on this list? And tell me why.
That would be the matchup against LSU on November 29th.
I love it. I did not have LSU on my list. Also, let me interrupt you real quick. Also, going through this and trying to make the schedule, I realized just how hellacious this OU football schedule is.
It's rough.
It's crazy. And then comparing that to Texas, it's like it's night and day.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I did not have LSU.
No, you're good. I had LSU. I think the timing obviously is important with it being right at the end, regardless of kind of like what the situation is. There could be a lot on the line for multiple reasons at this point. If Oklahoma, let's say, limps into this game with a 6-5 record, and that 7th win gives them an opportunity to maybe set up for an 8-5 season on something that was brutal. If they can win the bowl game, like that might be enough, especially if they beat a good LSU team at home. It could also be a moment where Oklahoma's like 9-2 and they win this game. They're probably locked into the college football playoff. 10-2, and so there could be a lot there. I also think it's important that this is like the last. They have a home stand there with Missouri just ahead, just a week before. So you got a 2-game homestead to finish out SEC play, and I just think LSU's supposed to be pretty salty this year, and I think getting a chance to return the favor for their trip down to Baton Rouge this last season, I think it's going to be an important one.
You went through all that analysis, and you did mention it's the Bauer Sharp revenge game or the Nick Anderson revenge game, which I somehow wasn't even thinking until recently. I was like, oh yeah, Nick Anderson plays for LSU.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. Did that not factor? Did Bauer Sharp not factor into your analysis?
Bauer Sharp didn't. I did forget to mention Nick Anderson. That was something that I had thought about, but at that point, I'm thinking just with how I see the season playing out, the overarching theme for that game is either going to be somebody's coaching for their job or OU's potentially playing for a spot in the playoff. I think the season goes one of two ways in my mind.
I agree, although I was actually going back through my schedule review series last year, and actually because this was obviously the season finale last year too in Baton Rouge. I had also put in that review that I just didn't see a reality where this game didn't have a big factor in, it wasn't a big factor in the college football playoff race, and that did not happen because OU had won 6 games before that. However, I agree. I think it being in Norman is going to be awesome. This game will rank highly in my schedule review series because the entertainment value alone for OU to be hosting a regular season finale, for it to be against LSU, and genuinely the Bauer Sharp and Nick Anderson returns. I mean, I think that's going to be like, there's going to be a lot of juice. There's just going to be a lot of juice in Norman that game or that day. All jokes about Bauer Sharp aside, I actually think he's going to be a good player for them this year.
I do too. I think he'll be utilized properly, and I won't go out on a limb as far as to say I think he'll be like all SEC first team, but it would not surprise me to see him be like a third team or even a second team guy in that offense because they'll utilize him. So
no, are you saying they won't ask him to one-on-one block SEC defensive ends?
Probably not. I think, a guy like that with that kind of speed, maybe you put him out in space and let him catch the football.
Yeah. Maybe don't ask him to throw passes.
Yeah.
Maybe because he shouldn't be doing that. Let me ask you this then about LSU. What do you expect for them in 2025? Because last year was like fine.
Yeah.
Right? They were fine. What do you expect for them?
Well, I mean, you look at, and I don't have it pulled up right in front of me right now, but if I remember correctly, they're like one of the teams that has been as aggressive as Texas Tech in the transfer portal, just going out and getting dudes.
They have an awesome portal class, and the recruiting class was like top 10 again.
Yeah. So I think Brian Kelly, it's not to the level that BV is feeling, but I think he's feeling some pressure down there, and this is going to be a big year for them because if they can figure out how to use Harold Perkins, like get him back to what he was his sophomore or freshman season, whichever year he was a stud. And then they also went and got the to flank him. They got that kid from Florida State. I'm trying to remember the edge rusher from Florida State, Patrick.
I don't know why I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah. Anyways, they should be good defensively. They return a lot of guys, and then obviously Nussmeier has maybe the highest ceiling of any of the guys returning this year, just as far as quarterback talent goes. So I think they'll be pretty good. I would be surprised if they're not kind of like right in that mix to be one of those at-large bids by the time they come to Norman.
If Nussmeier hits and like hits his ceiling, they'll be really, really, really good.
Yeah,
they have talent everywhere, and I haven't actually looked at their schedule, but they're really. I think they can be. I mean, I think their ceiling is probably like win the SEC. I won't pick them when SEC Media Day comes around. I won't pick them to win the SEC, but I think they could. So yeah, like imagine LSU comes to town and both teams are like, again, just bear with me here. I'm not saying OU's going to win 10 games. I have no idea. But imagine if like both teams are like 9-2.
Be huge.
Or like 8-3, where if either team loses, they are firmly out of the playoff race. But with a win, they're probably in.
Yeah.
Like you can get to 9-3.
Yeah.
What that atmosphere in Norman's going to be like.
It'd be massive. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to my next team on my list. At Tennessee. That's my number 5 team.
All right.
And because I actually think the rest of my list is going to be I think is going to surprise you a little bit. But and part of the reason, again, we're picking from all 8 of these SEC games are going to be insane. But I think for Tennessee, part of it is I don't know exactly what to expect from them, right? Because I mean everything with Nico leaving. I don't know what to expect from them. Their expectations should still be high, but they obviously take a huge hit, right? So I think it probably has the most variance to me in terms of we could get to November 1st, which is when that game is, and be like, oh my God, that's going to be a crazy game. Or it could be like, what if Tennessee's like 5-4, right?
Yeah.
But I pick it because for one, it's at Tennessee. That's going to be awesome. 2, obviously, it's Josh Heupel. Again, that storyline is always awesome. And to me, I think of it. I looked at it as it's November 1st. It's the first conference November game for Oklahoma, and that's the stretch run, right? Because it's at Tennessee, at Bama, Missouri, LSU. That's your November. And depending on where OU is when November comes around, you get a win in Tennessee to start the month. Massive. If you lose it, like, again, it's not about any game is more important than any other, but I think given where it is on the schedule, given the caliber of opponent they could be, and the fact that it's a road game in November, that's my pick.
Tennessee's not even on my list, so we are par for the course so far. We got different ones.
Give me your number 4 then, because actually, the more I started talking about it, the more I actually took away some of my own interest in that Tennessee game. So tell me number 4.
Number 4 for me is October 18th against South Carolina.
That is my number 4. That's my number 4.
Yeah. Going to Columbia is going to be fun. That is and I think it started to get some of its due over the last couple of years, just how difficult a place that is to go and win. That is, I mean, when they play Sandstorm and they get rolling, and it's pretty wild. They had LSU on the ropes last year and got robbed. I mean, absolutely robbed from that game. But that's a tough team. I think Lenore Sellers he's like a Heisman candidate this year in a lot of people's minds. So if they hit with him, they've got the most. He's an absolute freak. Their Dylan Stewart on the edge is going to be a problem, regardless of who he's up against. The guy is he is the closest thing to Myles Garrett that college football has had since Myles Garrett. Like he's that good. So you take that into account. They've got a major playmaker on both sides. That's going to be a tough game. I think the biggest thing for why I put it at 4 is kind of where it falls at in the schedule. Not only does it follow the Cotton Bowl against Texas, but it starts it starts a 6-game run that is just brutal. So, and the Texas game, like, you kind of factor that in, but Oklahoma for the last however many years leading into 2024, once you got through that Cotton Bowl game, like, more often than not, your schedule after that was not terrible until maybe the Bedlam matchup, just because it was what it was. But now there is no rest after that Texas game. I mean, you just roll right into it. So, I got them at 4, and I could see the argument for it being higher on the list. I could see the argument for it being lower on the list just because the schedule's that tough.
You laid out a lot of the reasons why I had it at number 4 too, but I think to add on to that, if OU really wants, like, not only a bounce back year, but a year that you can point to as real tangible progress, where it's not only stuff to build on, but maybe even leads to postseason stuff for them.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to win a couple of tough road games.
Yep.
Like, you just are. And especially against, like, again, South Carolina to me is almost like LSU, where I think their ceiling is high, but their floor is not that high.
Yeah.
And South Carolina is probably not the toughest team they're going to face, right? Especially when you've got when you've got Alabama on the road, when you've got Tennessee on the road, you still have Texas. Like, it's probably not going to be the toughest game, but so along those lines, that's going to be the type of game that you have to win.
Yeah.
Because if you win that game, you give yourself, like, OU's going to lose some games. Every team in the SEC is going to lose some games.
Yep.
It's more about what losses can you stomach. Could you stomach losing at Bama? Sure. Could you stomach losing at Tennessee? But if you can get a win at South Carolina, it just gives you a little bit more of a margin for error.
Yep.
On top of that, I actually think going to Bama might be the most excited I am for upcoming road trips. South Carolina might be number 2.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to go to South Carolina, and that environment is going to be insane.
I want to start with, first I want to start with this. I have some friends who were fortunate enough to go to Knoxville, the most recent time that Oklahoma went, and
Is that 15?
yeah, and they
Come
had
back.
been to several big time games up to that point, and said unquestionably Knoxville was the loudest football game they have ever been at. And this is a diehard OU fan. So really looking forward to that one. My thought though, and I want to run this past you. True or false? You can't go 0-3 in Columbia, Knoxville, and Tuscaloosa and not have your job in jeopardy. If you go 0-3 in those games on the road in SEC play, Brent Venables' job is in jeopardy because you have to pick. If you pick up one, I think that just looks so much different with how hard the schedule is elsewhere.
In a vacuum, I agree with you because that would also assume that OU is dropping at least one or two outside of them, right?
Yep.
Now, obviously, in a different context, like if those are the three, if OU goes 9-3 and those are the 3 losses,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
OU, like, again, if OU has gone through maybe more offseason transformation than any other program in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Not only in terms of roster, coaching moves, they hired a general manager, they have a full-fledged front office now full of guys with NFL experience. If you're going to do that, like, you're signaling not only that this isn't a rebuild, we're trying to play now. They're trying to play big boy football now.
Yep.
And big boy football means you go win at minimum one of those games.
Yep.
100%. If they go 0-3 and then drop, say they lose to Missouri at home, they lose to Texas, right? Then I mean, like, OU's got to go win big games now. This isn't like, I don't think fans are going to get to the end of the season at 7-5 and be like, well, yay, they beat Missouri and Auburn, right? Like, you got to go win a couple of games, really tough games on the road.
Yeah, you go 0-3 in those games, it's looking bad. You go 1-2 in those games, you're probably a fringe college football playoff team if you go 1-2 in those games. Given the rest, you go 2-1, we're talking big time. And then if they found a way to go 3-0, like, holy crap, we're talking about a really good ball team just by looking at that schedule, looking ahead. So yeah, that's pretty clear. My number 4.
Well, since we both had the same number 4 at South Carolina, give me your number 3.
The Cotton Bowl.
Ooh, it was also in my top 5, but not a number 3.
Okay,
give me. Why'd you put it at number 3?
I have it at number 3 because I don't necessarily consider it, and this is going to get me just hamstrung, but I don't consider that game a must win for the season to be a success. You absolutely need to go and beat Texas. You're 1-2 against Texas if you're Brent Venables. Like, you've got to win that game, but I think you could win every other game leading up to that point, and lose that one and still be all right. If you don't show up and you're not competitive again for 3 out of the last 4 times, it's a bad look. And I just think with where it falls, I have it as my third most important because I don't think it completely derails the season if you lose it. It's still vitally important though, if that makes sense.
It doesn't. There's realities where if OU loses that game, it's not the end of the world. I think because again, like OU could be 11-1 with a Texas loss, and no one's going to bat an eye, right?
Correct.
What
Yep.
people will bat an eye about, and why I have it a little higher on my list. There's a couple of things, and I'll dive into one of them later.
It is OU Texas.
The OU cannot get their ass kicked again at Texas or against Texas.
Yeah.
Like, can't.
Yeah.
Can't. That's like if there's. I will say I agree to your point. Like Texas is a favorite to compete for another national title. They're going to be really, really good. There's no shame in losing to Texas. Just from a talent on the field competitiveness standpoint. The one thing that cannot happen for OU this entire season is you cannot get your ass kicked against Texas.
Right.
You can lose to Texas and lose to anybody else.
Yep.
Literally anybody else.
Yep.
Except maybe Kent State. Maybe that's the other. Maybe that's number one, and getting your ass kicked against Texas is number two. Maybe that's the only that you can't lose to Kent State at home. It almost won't matter what happens outside of that game if OU goes in and gets their ass kicked again.
Yep.
It has been, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you if you lose like 38-10 at Alabama late season and things just get away from you quick, like you can probably overcome that as a fan base. But if Texas beats you the third time, if Texas beats you 3 years out of 4 and it's 38-10 in that game, the optics of that are terrible.
Well, and also think about like even that Bama game. Now it's gonna depend. If that happens to Bama and OU's already in a tailspin and that happens, then you don't recover, right?
Sure.
If OU's having a good year to that point and that happens, I think fans will overlook it.
Yeah.
The Texas game falls so perfectly in the middle of the schedule that, especially if OU drops one game before that Texas game, again, another hint to what's coming up for me. And then not only loses that Texas game, but gets their ass kicked. Like I'm not reporting anything. I've said over and over again, this administration does not want to fire Brent Venables. I have said that repeatedly. If Brent Venables is fired, it's because they genuinely feel like they had no other choice. That's how bad the season was.
Let it in Sharpie, folks. You heard it here.
If that happens, like if OU falls to 4-2, say, or God forbid 3-3, and one of those games is an ass kicking against Texas, Brent Venables is gone.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with you. It's not losing to Texas in a vacuum wouldn't be the worst thing. I think more than anything, OU should have the mindset to go win that game with all the offseason moves they've made. And at the very least, this cannot be a game that's over by the middle of the second quarter. I cannot tell you how crazy it is to me that going to these Red River games, that 2 of the last 3, I've been able to go to the press conference room in the third quarter.
Yep.
Start writing and just wait for the. I don't think I watched the fourth quarter of 22 or 24. I was writing.
Yeah.
What else was I going to do? Let me ask you this, then, and we'll move on. Do you think Texas gets back to the playoff?
Yes, but I don't think it's because Arch Manning lit the world up. I think it's because their defense is going to be top shelf again. They just have the dudes and where they have them. It just matters. I mean, Colin Simmons is a freak. Like they're going to be good again. But I think Arch Manning is probably. I'm going to say he's a top 5 SEC quarterback, but he doesn't light the world on fire.
I am probably most interested in watching Arch Manning than I am any other player in college football this year.
Yeah.
There's just so many. In addition to just him being a 5-star guy, obviously being a Manning, like all that stuff. I am so curious to see him as the full-fledged starter in a Sarkisian offense. And on top of that, I'm really curious to see how different it looks with him compared to Quinn Ewers. I don't even really think about last year that much when Ewers was hurt because it's different when you tailor a system to Ewers all year, and obviously not just last year, but years before that, and then you have to play Arch Manning in a pinch because Ewers got hurt. You have an entire offseason to build an offense around Arch Manning. I'm so curious to see how different that looks.
Yep.
And also just because you can't argue that the kid has talent.
Right.
A ton of talent.
Yep.
Texas is almost going to be must-watch TV for me.
They will be. If it wasn't a 12-team playoff, if it was still four, I would say I would probably lean no. Just from a statistical standpoint, but yeah, they'll probably be in.
I'll give you my number 3 for a bunch of reasons. This was an easy one for me. Auburn.
I have Auburn on my list.
Okay, but you have them higher than me. Okay, I like that. Number 3, Auburn for me. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but there's two main things, right? You're starting SEC play against Auburn, and it's at home in September. And if that isn't an opportunity to really jumpstart your season, you get to start at home against Auburn, a game that should be winnable. And I think you're going to feel real intensity in that game. And on top of that, how can you, again, forgive me for the first takeness of this, but Jackson Arnold coming back to Norman. Oh my God. I mean, buzz is going to be palpable. How much do you think he gets booed? Does he get full-fledged boo birds?
I hope that he does not, because
he will though.
I know he will, and I know it's going to happen, but I hope it's not. I hope it's not wholeheartedly, because I mean, he had the opportunity to sit out once he did, and he didn't. You know, he did what he felt was best for his teammates, and I respect that. And I don't think it's first take. I mean, that's going to be a major storyline, and really, like, think about all of the intangibles, all of the consequences that would come from him balling out. Like, if he was to come into Oklahoma and throw for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, like, it would look awful.
Well, and if OU loses that game, and then obviously every year is so different. I mean, these two teams are vastly different, but think about just how things felt after OU won at Auburn last year. And that game also that was week 5, and this is week
4.
Mm-hmm. So I think about it from that aspect too. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be, like, think about if everything goes off the rails for Oklahoma again, and Jackson Arnold is not only awesome and Auburn has a good year, but Jackson Arnold is dominant in Norman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just the optics of that.
Well, and on top of that, like, as you said earlier, I think you kind of used this during the Texas, we're talking about the Texas game, but like, not only is it the SEC opener and against Jackson Arnold, but like, if you're going to turn things around, I would say that's a must-win football game. If you're going to turn things around, SEC opener at home against what is being expected to be a middle of the road SEC team, you have to win that football game. You have to. It's sandwiched between Temple and Kent State. There are no excuses. That is a game you have to win.
And it's not like, I mean, it just is. Again, if OU's wanting to play big boy football,
yep,
you win that game at home.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, a lot of these tough games for Oklahoma are on the road. When you actually look at this home slate, again, I'm not saying OU even should win every game at home, because that's going to be really hard, right? Auburn's not going to be an easy game. LSU, Missouri, like, those aren't going to be easy games. Yep. Ole Miss is not going to be an easy game, right? But when you contrast OU's home schedule to the games they play away from home, there's a big difference in those two things too.
Yeah.
So I'd almost like, again, if and when OU drops any of these home games, it just puts that much pressure to win one of these road games, and that's just not going to be easy
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's must win, and again, I picked it that high. It's going to be high in my schedule series too, because I think the atmosphere of it being the SEC opener and Arnold coming back to town, he's going to get booed just
Yeah.
mercilessly. And
Yeah.
is it like the fairest thing in the world? No, it's not.
Right. But it is going to be intense. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is, again, it's not all. I keep on saying again. I got to stop doing that. It's not.
Again.
It's not. I've been listening to Brent Venables too much. It's not all his fault. All the issues last year weren't his fault. He had some of the worst plays I have seen in an OU football uniform in a long time, and he certainly didn't help things. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you. Actually, you give me your number 2.
Number 2, the Auburn game.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it just, to me, the way that I kind of ranked this was, it really does it helps establish the tone of the season. So, I only have one game higher than that on establishing the tone of the season. So,
Well, okay. I like that. My number 2 was actually Texas. My number 2 was Texas. We've talked about Texas. So that means I would presume we haven't talked about either of our number 1s yet. Have we talked about either of our number 1s?
No.
Then give me your number 1.
Michigan.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Michigan.
Give me your spiel.
Well, it's all about where it's at. I mean, where the game is. It's week 2. Like, the hype is going to be real. I would wager that in a vanilla offense against Illinois State, the Sooners will light up the scoreboard, and there will be puff pieces galore everywhere that the Oklahoma offense is back. And then there will be another half of the country that says, well, let's just wait, because when Michigan comes to town, we'll see it against a real defense. I think this is the pendulum game. This is
it sets the tone
game.
for everything.
For everything. If you win this football game, and here's the thing, like, I think a lot of fans that have tuned out since December or January and tune back in August, they'll look and they'll see Michigan up there. They'll see that Michigan was like 7-win team last year, or 8-win team last year, and be like, no, yeah, you should win that game. No, like, that is probably one of the most talented rosters in the country. Bryce Underwood is a stud. I don't know what he's going to look like week 2 in Norman. It's only his second game ever in a collegiate uniform, but that's a big brand. They've got a lot of talent. Head coach is coming back home where he played football. Like, there's all these intangibles, but at the top of the list is it sets the tone for the entire year. You win that football game and you head into the Auburn game at 3-0, presumably beating Temple the next week. The sky is the limit for that team. I mean, at that point in the season. So,
God, there's both there's so many things you pointed out there that I want to dive into, and why it was an easy number 1 for me. Week 2 at home against Michigan.
yeah.
And it's not only just Michigan. It's not just that it's a big brand, right? But both teams have insane pressure to bounce back from awful 2024 seasons.
Yep.
I mean, both 2024 for both of these programs was one of the at best one of the worst 10 seasons. Sorry, let me rephrase that. 2024 was in the top 10 worst seasons for both these programs.
There you go.
Historically.
Yeah.
And oh my God, there's so much pressure for both of these teams to win that game. I just don't think Michigan's going to be bad this year. I just don't.
Either.
I don't see it. I think last year was their bad year. Most programs, unless you're Oklahoma 2 of the last 3 years, or unless you're Texas in the 2010s, most programs don't, like big blue blood programs, and Michigan's a blue blood, do not have prolonged stretches of being bad. Right. It's the system is almost set up for that not to happen.
Yep.
And from a Michigan standpoint, not only is there a ton of pressure, the Bryce Underwood thing is just going to dominate headlines.
Yep.
5-star quarterback, freshman, leading Michigan after a really bad 2024 year, and his first real test comes on the road in week 2 in Norman against a Brent Venables defense and a program that is desperate to win 9 games at minimum.
Yep.
In 24.
Yep.
I mean, those storylines alone.
Well, and on top of that, like, and this just occurred to me. I mean, the two most storied rivalries in college football are the game and the Cotton Bowl. And Texas and Ohio State open up the season, week 1. And then Oklahoma and Michigan kind of pick up the other side of that. And those are 4 programs that, I mean, have been around as much as anybody. So, like, it's just from a brand standpoint, like, my goodness, as from a brand perspective, I mean, you have Ohio State. This kind of is right there with Ohio State coming to Norman, and Notre Dame coming to Norman when they did. I mean, like, there's just, you don't have non-conference games that stand out like this one does very often. And it just, like you said, it sets the table, especially coming off of the year that they both had last year.
You know how many times Oklahoma and Michigan have played total program history?
I know Oklahoma beat them for a national championship, but is that the only time?
1976.
There you go.
Well, you won that game 14-6, if I remember that correctly. I just think it's going to be an awesome game. I would be stunned if it's a blowout either direction. That would shock me. I think we're going to get to the end of the 2020s, and I think that, like, that game has the potential to be one of the 5 best games played in Norman for the decade.
Yeah.
And just with all these stakes and all that stuff, and on top of that, it does set the tone for everything. Think about the pressure it puts on Oklahoma if you lose that game in week 2 and you're presumably 1-1. Now think about how much pressure you face against Auburn. Because, like, think about the domino it sets for everything else. Imagine you lose to Auburn and now you're 2-2. Imagine if you go to Texas 3-2 and you lose.
And your best wins against Temple.
Yeah. And now you get to the midway point of the season, 3-3 or even 4-2. Even if OU beats Auburn. If you lose to Texas, you're 4-2. And now you've got to go through a hellacious back half of the schedule, needing to go at worst 5-1. Just the pressure that puts on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's winning that game. Again, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I'm trying to be level. That's my, just like I am as a Thunder fan. Don't look at my Twitter. Try to be level-headed. Winning that game could be the difference between OU having the season that fans are dying for and the season that upends everything.
Yep.
For this program.
It really
Again, I'm not even trying to say it's one or the other. Are there realities where OU loses that game, it's disappointing, but they bounce back and still have a good season? 100%. I'm not saying that's not possible, but think about not only if they lose that game, what if it's not super competitive? And I don't even mean a blowout. What if Michigan wins it convincingly? With all of the pressure that Oklahoma has this season, can you imagine the discourse? You drop week 2, fair or not, because I do think Michigan's going to be better. They had a bad year last year.
Yeah, and it's 24-13
Yeah, I was thinking like 27-10, right? And it's a game that like Michigan takes an early lead and OU like tries to cut into it and just never does. Yeah. Right? Think about the discourse. Think about just the urgency. I mean, it's just crazy that game is week 2. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
To me, it's not. So again, if this exercise is to tell the 5 games that will define OU season, I just don't know how Michigan isn't number 1.
Right. Yep. I agree with that.
Outside of that, I think to end here is I guess let me just ask you this. What's the road trip you're most looking forward to?
Personally,
or the game you're most looking forward to.
Okay, game. It's a toss-up between Tennessee and Alabama. I think Alabama for all the pageantry that comes with going to Tuscaloosa, and they should be pretty good again. But I want to see if Knoxville lives up to its reputation.
I think it's Bama and South Carolina for me.
Yeah,
those games are going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's going to be a really fun season. I think we've got SC Media Days in a month, and I think over the next few weeks we'll talk about different position groups. We'll talk about intriguing questions. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff. But that's going to do it for us here on this episode of the Oklahoma Drill. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Bryan, appreciate you you joining me as you always do, repping the Thunder because today's a big game. This helped me take my mind off of just the crippling anxiety that I'm going to be having this evening at 7:30. Appreciate you guys as always. Make sure to like and subscribe here at this OU Insider YouTube channel. Go to OUinsider.com, become a VIP member today. We'll be back next week for another episode of this podcast. Until then, we'll see you guys next week.